Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to this segment of our program, The Forces of Evil. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. In this segment of our program, we continue to look at the tools of Satan, the methods by which Satan and the satanic forces create havoc in our world, cause us ultimately to swerve from the worship of the one true God, Allah, to the worship of His creation, to disbelief, to actually doubting about God's existence, etc. In our previous program, we looked at different areas of doubt. This is under the general heading of creating doubts, or tashkik in Arabic. And we looked at how Satan creates doubt about God's existence, because of course this is the greatest and most harmful of the doubts. And then we looked at the issues of worshipping Allah alone, introducing intermediaries, and how other gods became worshipped besides Allah. And also we looked at certain aspects of the principles of faith, whether it is belief in the angels and the jinn, and the belief in the prophets and the judgment, etc. How people become doubtful about these things and the harm that it creates in their lives. Now we're looking at, in this segment, we'll look at something a little more specific, related to worship amongst Muslims, how doubt is created, further doubt is created, and their worship becomes distorted or confused. We have, for example, in the area of the intention, of course, before one makes a prayer, one should have the correct intention. One should come there with this correct intention. However, the place of the intention is in the heart. That is, one should have that intention in one's heart. It's not something which one says. However, people in the past, in order to help children be focused on what their prayers were, children who would come into the mosque, the time for prayer, from playing outside, etc., they may join the prayer and not really know what they're praying. What is the prayer they're praying, etc. So they had formulas that the children were taught to recite before the prayers. They would recite that, I intend to pray, and they would identify the prayer, the midday prayer, for example, which consists of 4 units of prayer. This is all to kind of help them remember all of this, praying behind the imam, etc., etc. However, in time, people grew up and continued to do these practices. And it became a standard practice in some areas of the Muslim world, where prior to prayer, people would stand up and make these long recitations. And of course, this is really innovation, and it creates further confusion in the prayer, where a person may be standing preparing himself for prayer and somebody's beside uttering this and uttering that. So it becomes a means of confusion. And as I said, it is also deviation from the way of the Prophet. May God's peace and blessings be upon him. We also have the concept, some people express that or taught that when a person begins the prayer, raising their hands, saying Allahu Akbar, that the God is the greatest, and one is really submitting themselves to God and putting behind themselves, all of the worldly matters and affairs, and now focusing on God in the worship, that one has to completely eradicate any thoughts from one's mind of anything besides the prayer and God. It has to be completely eradicated before one can start. Of course, this has never been stressed by the Prophet ﷺ nor by his companions, etc. This should be our intent, that when we come in, time for prayer comes, we raise our hands, we say Allahu Akbar, in our mind, mentally, we try to put these things aside, but we carry on in our prayer. And whatever comes up, or whatever may be hanging there of the things of the world, we struggle against it, we try to remove it, and we continue to the prayer. And these thoughts may come back to us during the prayer. And the prayer is a process of struggle, between focusing on God, focusing on the worship, what's the intent, etc., and the worldly things which would try to come in on us during our prayers. However, those who tell people, or those people are taught, that they must eradicate everything before the prayer, then it makes actually the beginning of the prayer itself very difficult for them. So you'll find some people struggling to start their prayer. They're starting to raise their hands to say this Allahu Akbar, and they can't. Because there's some other thoughts come in, and they try again, and they'll try again, and you see them struggling, just to get into the prayer itself. And of course, when one finds getting into a prayer is so difficult, then it becomes something that, a person loses interest in. A person, finds it as a burden, a major burden on themselves. So these kinds of wrong ideas, can create, and although on one hand it might seem to be a good thing, that you can eradicate from your mind totally, but the reality that it doesn't exist. Our minds don't function that way. Our minds are such that thoughts can come without our control, outside of our control. We cannot blank out our mind absolutely. It's unnatural for our mind to be in that state. Now, during the prayer itself, we can find some problems arising from satanic elements. Prophet ﷺ had said there's a particular group of evil jinn who are known as khanzab, who will come at the time when a person is bowing in ruku', in the bowing position, and blow on their behind to let them get the feeling as if they're passing wind or something like this, So, a person becomes doubtful. I don't have my state of purification. I have to leave the prayer. Or did I not? Or, these kind of doubts are raised on them, at different points during the prayer. So the Prophet ﷺ said that if one experiences this, where one has these doubts about whether one still has wudu or purification or not, whether one has lost it due to that wind one has passed wind, then one should not accept this thought as fact unless one either hears something or one smells something. If one didn't hear or smell anything, then they should continue with their prayer. Just ignore it. Now, some people have mistakenly taken this to mean that whilst you're praying, if you pass wind, and you don't smell anything, and you don't hear it, then you ignore it. But this is not correct. If you know that you've passed wind, then you must leave the prayer. No matter where you are, you could be in the very front lines of the prayer. If you've passed wind, you must leave the prayer, because prayer is not accepted, in a state when one is not in a state of ablution, a state of, ritual purification. One must leave that prayer. Though it may seem embarrassing or whatever, you make your way out of the lines, you go and make your ablution again and come back, and you can complete from where you left off. Now, prior to the prayer itself, where one prepares oneself for prayer, for the ablution, the Prophet ﷺ had also said there is a particular, another group of evil jinn that will come and try to make confusion in the wudu itself. And he said, in a narration related by Ubay ibn Ka'b, إن للوضوء شيطانا يقال له الولهان فاتقوا وساوس الماء. That indeed, in the case of wudu or ablution, there is a particular devil or evil jinn that is assigned to it, and its name is al-walhan. So beware of the whisperings of the water concerning water. That is, people, when they're trying to make the wudu, maybe as they're taking the water in their mouth, they may think they taste something. Is this water really clean or not? You start to have doubts about that. Or you put the water in your nose and you smell something. Is this water? Doubts are coming in your mind like that. Though the water is coming through the tap like any other way. Everybody else is making wudu, but you're having these doubts. Furthermore, when you're washing the parts of your body, you wonder, did I wash everything? You start to look and you see maybe there's a dry spot here or there, so you have to start your wudu over again. Or after you've reached your feet, you wonder, did I wipe my head? So you reach and touch your head. Is it wet or not? Is it dry? All these kind of doubts. So you find some people, with so many doubts coming at them, even when making this purification, they can't complete it. they're struggling with it. So the solution to that is just to make your ablution along with somebody else. Have somebody watch you. So at the end of it, they can say to you, yes, you covered everything. And you can say, okay, fine, carry on. Put all their doubts aside and carry on to the prayer. And of course, there are doubts which come to us during the prayer of another type, where we start to wonder, did we pray 2 units or 3? We have a 3-unit prayer, or we have a 4-unit prayer, and we're on what we thought was the third, but then doubt comes to us, are we on the second or are we on the third? At this point, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, you build on what is certain. Build on certainty. What you're sure of is that you prayed 2. What you're not sure of is that you may have prayed 3. Did you pray 3 or not? So you assume you prayed 2 and just carry on from there. And at the end, you do 2 prostrations for forgetfulness. And this is the way Prophet ﷺ provided for us to eradicate those confusing thoughts which the evil jinn may put in on us during our prayers, prior to our prayers. Outside of prayer, we also have an area where doubt is raised, which is very, very harmful. And that is the area of honor, people's or Muslims' honor. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, had told us that the Muslim, is one from whom other Muslims are safe from his tongue and his hands. That is speaking ill of people, backbiting, gossip, slander, spying on people. All these kind of activities have been prohibited in Islam. Allah tells us in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ijtanibu kathiran min adh-dhann. Or you believe, avoid most of the suspicions, different suspicions that tend to arise. Avoid them. Why? Inna ba'd adh-dhanni ithm, because a portion of dhann, or suspicion, is actually sin, or leads to sin. So therefore, avoid it. As Allah says, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا, and don't spy on each other. وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا, and don't backbite each other. These are all forbidden practices. They destroy a Muslim's honor. We have to consider, when we're speaking about people in their absence, and we're talking about them negatively, what is the purpose of this? What we're doing, if it is to destroy that person's status in the eyes of others, then we are involved in evil. This is clear evil, which will come back to us on the Day of Judgment, where that person will be able to take from our scale of good deeds for the evil that we have done to them. However, we are allowed, on specific circumstances, to convey to others what we perceive to be harm done to us, or etc. If we're being oppressed, and the person we're speaking to is somebody who can resolve the situation and correct it, then to speak to them of the evil that the person has done to you is legitimate. Similarly, if it's in the case of marriage, and somebody wants to marry somebody who you know, and you know bad things about that person, it is your duty, if you're asked, if somebody comes and asks you, what do you think of this person? Is this a good person for me to marry? Or my son to marry, etc.? It is wrong for us to say, oh, they're good Muslims, they're alright, mashallah, because we fear backbiting them. No, this is not the circumstance. In this circumstance, we must give them the correct information, because this has to do with the future lives of people. This is why, when one of the women, followers of the Prophet, came to him, her name was Fatima, she came and asked him what she should do, because she was herself a divorced woman, and Amr ibn al-As had proposed to her, and so had Abu Sufyan. These were 2 very leading figures amongst the Quraysh who had converted to Islam. So she asked him, what should she do? And he told her that, Abu Sufyan is stingy. He's a stingy person. He doesn't give his family money, sufficient money. And Amr ibn al-As, he beats his women. He beats them. It's not good. So he's told her two negative things about these people. This is not considered backbiting. Then he went on to advise her to marry the son of his adopted son, former adopted son, Usama ibn Zayd. Marry him. Though he was the son of a former slave, etc., etc., this person, because of his faith, was the best one for you to marry. And she reported that she married him and her life was quite wonderful, as the Prophet ﷺ had promised her. So, in such circumstances, or in the case of business, for example, somebody wants to go into a business deal with somebody whom you already had a business dealing, and that person ripped you off. They took your money. They stole from you, or whatever. They cheated you, whatever. Somebody comes now, they want to enter into business contract with that person. For you to say, mashallah, he's a good Muslim, I really can't say anything bad about him. Why? Because you don't want to backbite him, is what you're saying, but the fact is, here is another Muslim. If you don't inform them of the facts, then they're likely to be harmed. So if you're informing to protect that other Muslim from harm, then this is your duty. You have to inform them, hey, this is what happened when I had my dealings with them. But of course, people can change. That's the reality. People can change. Maybe he has changed. But this is what happened with me. You can't hide these kind of facts. So where it involves protecting other Muslims from the harm of individuals, to speak about that information is legitimate. But where it involves really just putting people down in the sight of others, there's no benefit to come out of it. There's no corrections to be done. There's no business people's wealth or their honor, etc., to be protected. But it's just merely talking about others. And this is evil. This is satanic. And secret meetings to that effect are all despised by Allah. So, in this area of Muslims' honor, this is one of the areas in which confusion is raised in the society. Even when it comes to issues of marriage, where, a husband may go out and he's working and the satanic forces will come to the wife and whisper to her, maybe he's seeing another woman, all these other kind of things. He may be a hard-working man and doing all the right things, but the woman starts to get these whisperings, and then she starts to become doubtful of her husband. Everywhere he goes, she's trying to find out this and find out that and listening on his conversations, and, all these kind of things can create really bad feelings within the home. And so we have to be careful, where these ideas come from. If we have evidence for something, that's one situation. But otherwise, we have to keep these thoughts out of our actions. Prophet ﷺ had said that as a mercy from Allah, Allah has not held the nation accountable for thoughts, evil thoughts, etc., which come to the mind, as long as they don't speak about it, or act on it. In other words, if they act as if they believe it, then they're held accountable. If they speak about it to others, they have this doubt, whatever comes to their mind, they tell other people about it, then they become accountable for what they've said, because they've now started spreading a rumor, or they're, continue to spread a rumor. So, we have to beware of the doubts, the satanic doubts, which may destroy our acts of worship in and of themselves, by doubts coming at us in terms of how to perform it, or whilst we're performing it, or after we've performed it, that these doubts can come to us and destroy it, may cause us to have to repeat it over and over again, etc. But the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, has provided us with a variety of different methods to protect us from these things. So we should take those methods and utilize them for our protection. The other thing is, as I said, other major areas, the area of the honor of Muslims, where ill is spoken of Muslims, in different circumstances, which creates harm to individuals, to families, etc. So, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, known as The Forces of Evil. We are looking at their sources and how they affect us. We looked at them in the past, the satanic forces, Satan, how he affected Adam, etc., down through the ages, and how they continue to affect us today. And in our coming programs, we will ultimately look at how they may affect us in the future and how we can protect ourselves from these forces. With that, dear viewers, I bid you farewell, and I hope you will continue to follow our program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.